Can I just welcome you most warmly to this special webinar focusing on the work that universities across the UK have done with the BBC 50/50 project. My name is Margaret Hughes. I am Senior Lecturer in Journalism at the University of the West of Scotland, where we have taught journalism for about 30 years. And I am also the Chair of the Association for Journalism Education, which is the organisation which includes pretty much all of the universities who teach journalism here in the UK. And we have been delighted over the last 2 years to have worked with the BBC 50/50 project. And I'm also delighted to welcome this afternoon to this webinar event two of my colleagues, Johnny Greatrex. Johnny is the Senior Lecturer in Journalism, or one of the Senior Lecturers in Journalism at Nottingham Trent University, and also a member of the Association for Journalism Education Committee, and Nina Goswami, who's the Creative Diversity Lead at the BBC 50/50 project. Johnny.
Hi Margaret, thanks very much. Yes, hello everyone. I'm just looking at the attendees list and I recognise some of the names there from regular AJE events and some not. So nice to meet people that I've seen before, and if it's our first time meeting, hello. Nice to meet you. Yes, as Margaret said, I'm a Senior Lecturer for Journalism at Nottingham Trent University, where I am course leader for the MA News Journalism programme, and I teach a lot on the final year of our BA Journalism course, which is what we'll be talking about today. And I'm here to share a bit later on how we embedded the 50/50 project in our 2 end of course year 3 news weeks. I'm looking forward to that. Over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, no, it's a great story to hear from your university. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the detail on that front. Hi everyone, I'm really pleased to be here at this event hosted by the AJE. It's a really special moment for us because it's been something that's been growing for a long time. So it's fantastic to know that so many people across academia are now taking part in 50/50. So a little bit about me first. I'm Nina Goswami. As Margaret mentioned, I'm the BBC's Creative Diversity Lead for the 50/50 project, which means I head this up. But what our unit does overall is that we look at BBC content and we try and work out how can we support our content makers to make it more reflective of society, so that our audiences see, hear and read about people that they see reflecting them, really. And 50/50 is a really crucial key tool in us doing that. And we'll hear how that's now translating into the work that students are doing at universities as well. But I'll quickly run you through the key 3 principles of 50/50, which started in the heart of the London newsroom 4 years ago when our presenter, Ros Atkins from Outside Source, he got to this point where he was like, I can't believe how the BBC is constantly talking about increasing women's representation, but not managing to make a change, not managing to change that dial. So he came up with the idea of 50/50 and the 3 core principles that we stick to today. And the first principle is a very simple one. We collect data to affect change. We look at the content that we're creating as regularly and in real time as we possibly can, and then identify if there's areas of improvement so that we can reach 50% women over a set period of time. And when we count the number of men and number of women, and they count as 1 on that particular occasion. We measure what we control, that's number 2. After all, we can't make change on things that we can't control. So that's a fairly simple, straightforward principle, really, but it's something that makes 50/50 quite unique in comparison to other data monitoring tools that are out there. And the third golden rule and principle is that we never compromise on quality. The point of 50/50 is not just to increase women's representation. It's about finding the right voices to enrich the storytelling of our particular content that we're making. When we're looking for new women's voices, we're coming across really amazing new men and other voices as well. And that's really enriching our content. We're trying to find different stories, different perspectives, again, trying to reflect the audience in what we're doing. So this is all coming through in the work that we're seeing from the universities as well. and talking about the kind of what we're doing with the universities. As I say, we're getting them to do data monitoring, but also we have kind of extended that now to see if we can work with content makers who are students and to try and showcase their talent and their work. We know during coronavirus that the opportunities for work experience were reduced dramatically. And so we thought, we're at 50/50, we needed a new way of promoting what we were doing. And at the same time, we knew that students were looking for opportunities. And that was where 50/50, the pitch, was born. And I'm really excited to say that some of the students here on the panel will be talking about their projects that they've done for 50/50, where they've worked alongside BBC content makers and colleagues to create those, which has then gone on to promote things for 50/50. So before we go on to that, let's go back to the real heart of 50/50 and data. The university network is now 19 universities, and not just in the UK. We have American universities on board as well, and one of those is Cronkite. And they have taken the core principles of 50/50 and adapted it into a data tool of their own. I'm going to let them tell you about this in this short film.
I want to see more people like me.
People like me.
People like me.
People like me in the news industry.
And in the stories we cover.
Cronkite News partnered with BBC's 50/50 project, and it launched a beta test to start tracking source diversity last year.
It is important that we're reaching all communities, and this is going to help us in order to cover more stories and more accurate stories.
Women make up about 2/3 of the Cronkite School's student population, and 50% of Arizona's population are women. Yet, our initial results showed we used male sources 58% of the time.
When I hear these numbers, it's not surprising at all, and we have to do better.
Our efforts also included tracking race and ethnicity. Arizona State President has made diversity a cornerstone of our mission.
Diversity efforts are as important as the reporting we do. If we're not doing diverse reporting, we're not accurately representing the community that we cover.
Cronkite News students believe in diversity and inclusion, and they will be prepared to step into their professional newsrooms with the skills and insights they learned from this project.
My biggest plan is to show every type of people group in a positive light and not always in a negative one.
People who are diverse understand their communities the most, and it'll allow our stories to be more representative.
It doesn't matter the language barrier. I feel like you should always reach out to the sources that have the information and the facts to tell the right story.
A brilliant video there, I think we would agree, from the Cronkite School. Nina, how important is it that universities are part of the 50/50 programme?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when we started looking at 50/50, we saw the brilliant impact it was having in the BBC. And one of the things that we really quickly identified was this kind of supply-demand idea, that, we can only go so far with the data that we have, and understanding what the gaps are in what we're doing. We then need to make that change, and we can't do that alone as one organisation. And so when you think about, from an expert contributor perspective, what we ended up doing was holding like open days and getting our experts to come in and see that we're not scary as journalists, and that, we really want them to be the new voices for us. So that's one side of the equation. But the other side is actually who's coming into the media industry. Who are the people that will be kind of leading the way editorially for us in the future? And that's where the universities really plays a crucial part for us, because at the end of the day, if those voices are coming in with a mindset around diversity, around increasing representation and thinking about stories in a different way, then we as the media are more likely to be able to create that. And Margaret, I have to admit, I am very thankful to you for your help on that front. And the AJE, it was about 3 years ago when we met in Glasgow at a conference, if you recall. And if it wasn't for that, our network won't be the size that it is right now.
It was quite fortuitous and just so fantastic, such a fantastic opportunity for UK universities to be involved. But as we obviously have just seen from that clip, you're rolling it out internationally as well. How is that going?
Yeah, no, we have these, what Ros and I always talk about, pinch yourself kind of moments. And I think, when you see where 50/50 is going in terms of globally, it is quite brilliant to see. And obviously Cronkite is a good example of an American university. There are others who are in America for us, including Newark, you can't even speak, school, and University of Texas is our latest university over there. But we're not only in America, we're in Australia. We've got Charles Sturt over there. We've got the Asian College of Journalism in India. And we have the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. So you're seeing that, you know, they're popping up in different universities. Oh, and I forgot about Canada. Please, Humber College, I apologize. We are also in Toronto. So, you know, we're starting to see universities across the globe taking this on. And I think what's really important about that is, you know, this collective kind of movement, essentially. You know, the more of us who are doing it, the more that are getting involved and thinking about the diversity of the content, the more likely we're going to be creating a different landscape as we move forward.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we probably need to have another conversation, Nina, because I have a few ideas of how you could reach an international network. So let's have that separately. Let's pin that. But now can I introduce a really valued colleague of mine's, Johnny, and he is going to tell us about what his students at Nottingham Trent University have been doing, but also about the difference that you felt being involved in 50/50 has made at NTU, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret, and that's very kind. Thank you very much. And yes, Nina, you were right. You're lucky to happen on Margaret at that conference, because she's a fantastically helpful and useful person to know, and very supportive in so many things that we do. You know, what have we done? We basically took the 50/50 project as is run by the BBC in their newsrooms, and as we're hearing in many different places now across the world, and we put it into our news weeks, and our students are gonna talk you through that in more detail. So I don't want to steal their thunder, but what difference does it make to me as a tutor or to us as a department and a university? Well, first of all, it's been a fantastic teaching tool. It's been a really applied and practical way to get students to think and act on conversations and thoughts and challenges around diversity and gender equality and other areas of equality as well. And it adds a certain, I say as well, kudos to us as tutors, it feels like, when we're able to say, look, we are plugged into this network, we're working with the BBC. And so, although, you know, value in the university sector can be a bit of a dirty word for some valid reasons, it does add a huge amount of value to what we do. And it was actually really, really interesting and exciting and encouraging to see how empowered the students felt to be given an opportunity to act on these issues, which thankfully, by and large, the vast majority of them really resonate with them, and they feel like it's exactly the sort of thing they want to be doing. And I think the final difference is that we also feel we are better preparing our graduates, coming back onto what Nina said there, better preparing our graduates to go into the industry and be at the forefront of this change and drive and push these changes. And even maybe going into places where 50/50 hasn't reached yet, or different parts of the sector, and saying, oh, I noticed you don't do anything about gender equality in sources or whatnot. Well, I know a great way we can improve that. Do you want me to lead that for you? And so actually we feel like we're giving them the tools to be kind of the drivers of that positive change when they leave us.
Fantastic, Johnny. I think all of us who've been involved in it would absolutely agree with those statements that you've made. But now we're going to hear from what I think are probably the most important people involved in the 50/50 project in our universities, and that is obviously our students. And we're going to hear about some of the work that they have done. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and tell us a bit more about what they've done as part of the 50/50 project over the course of their studies. So I'm going to go first to Star McFarlane from Falmouth.
Hello, so my name's Star, and I am in my third year on the journalism course here at Falmouth. I'm surviving the final term, and I've just taken part in a mini kind of film series which we've been working with the 50/50 project, and I did that with a very talented team. It definitely was a team effort, it wasn't just myself. And we did that as part of a series which we won as part of a pitch process, which we were very lucky enough to have won. And so what our series was, is a series of profiles on different people that represent a different area of diversity that 50/50 are monitoring. So obviously gender and 50/50 have more recently stepped out into monitoring areas of disability and ethnic minority monitoring as well. So we kind of chose someone from each of those areas and did a profile on them. And I worked as reporter and writer of the series, and it was a really exciting project to be a part of. And we kind of chose people from Cornwall within the local community, and we were really keen on not just kind of profiling people who were representative of each of those areas of diversity, but were also actively advocating for better representation in that area. So the first episode, which we're going to have a look at in a few moments, was on a wonderful woman called Amy O'Brien, and she's a Cornish commercial fisherwoman. And the second episode was on a visual artist and children's book illustrator called Lucy Apple, and she has cerebral palsy. And then our third episode is on Marcus Elaine, and he's an amazing conductor, composer and educator, but he's also the vice chairman of an organisation working here in Cornwall called Black Voices Cornwall, and they're working on ending systemic racism within the county. And then our fourth episode, which is still kind of in the pipeline at the moment, we went to BBC Radio Devon, and they're the only regional BBC outlet other than BBC London, I do believe, that have taken on the 50/50 process of monitoring in all areas of representation, not just gender, but disability and ethnicity as well. So that's kind of an overview of the different episodes and what we kind of look at within them. So a bit more about Amy's episode and how that kind of came together. So we first found Amy through social media, and she runs a social media page promoting the work that she does fishing, and she works out of Newlyn, which is your classic Cornish fishing village, very quaint, very beautiful, but very heavily dominated by men in the fishing industry there, and so she's kind of actively promoting what she does on social media. We did 2 days of on-location filming with Amy and interviewing. It was actually quite hard to pin down those days of filming because she's at sea a lot, which is understandable because she is a fishwoman. But yeah, so I think one thing to kind of point out about Amy's episode is the narrative for Amy's episode kind of came a lot after we did the filming and the interviewing and asking about the work that she's doing, because we kind of wanted to really think about what story do we want to tell with who she is, with what she's doing, and wanted to make sure that really kind of reflects the message of 50/50 as well. And so within each episode, we also have a section where we talk to one of the partner organisations working with 50/50 from that area of diversity monitoring, and yeah, so for Amy, she's very energetic, she's very passionate about what she does, and I'm sure that will come across, and I think personally she does definitely capture the spirit of 50/50 in wanting to really spotlight these amazing new voices that are actively kind of making change. So let's take a look at that now.
I definitely remember thinking that jobs were gendered. Anything more physical has always kind of been represented as a men's job, which it shouldn't be and doesn't have to be. My name's Amy O'Brien. I'm 31 and I'm a fisherman. There was a bit of a weird kind of reception when I first started. I got a lot of funny looks around the harbour, and a lot of people were like, what's she doing? Why is she going fishing? Like, girls don't go fishing. But it doesn't matter if I'm a man or a woman, I'm crew.
Despite coming up against prejudice, Amy is challenging the stereotypes around the representation of women within fishing.
Yeah, I think in every industry it's important that it's shown that men and women can do all these jobs, because, you know, to get a break in fishing I had to nag captains for a good few months for someone to take me to sea, even though I've got more qualifications than most of the men in this harbour. And I've been a mariner for 10 years. It took a long time to actually convince someone that I was able.
Amy's different perspective on the fishing industry is what 50/50 partners like ABC Australia are seeking out by leading the way in having female voices represented.
We are telling better stories because we're including a wider variety of voices in our content. We're not just going to those usual suspects, the quick hits, the people that have been in our contact books. It's made us think harder about the people that we're going to and including more voices in our journalism, which is just going to make it better.
ABC bringing different perspectives to light is something Amy very much supports, and why she tries to promote what she does on social media.
A few friends of mine who have got young children, especially daughters, have said that they've shown my page to their kids, and you know, like my friend Matt's little girl, she's 14, and she said that she saw my page and was like, oh wow, I didn't know girls could go fishing. And you know, I do think it's important to keep promoting that and being like, actually, yeah, I'm a chick and I'm doing this job and it's normal and anyone can do it.
Fantastic, Star. Thank you so much for that. We're now going to go on to Alex and Emilia from NTU, and I know some of you may have questions for some of the students, but what we're going to do is keep all the questions until the end, and I'm going to hand over now to Alex and Emilia.
Thank you very much, Margaret. So yeah, hi, my name's Alex. I'm a third year on Nottingham Trent University's journalism course. And me and Emilia got involved in the 50/50 project when it was integrated into the 2 news weeks that we do on the practical journalism module in our course. And they are sort of like the grand finale, essentially, of our course. It's what the whole sort of like the first 2 years are leading up to. It's when, you know, the whole cohort, we act as a fully functioning news team online, of course, this time because of the pandemic. And you know, we're producing digital and print news for 2 weeks. It's fantastic. So yeah, this was integrated into those news weeks, where we first had a little presentation from Angela Henshaw to see what the entire initiative was about, and then Johnny then sort of called out for volunteers to see who wanted to get involved in the project, which is where Emilia, myself, and the 6 others that were on our team got involved. And Emilia, I believe you were going to talk about the data monitoring itself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Emilia, and I'm a third-year student as well. I'm Alex, one of my colleagues, of course. And as you mentioned earlier, apart from the 2 of us, 6 other students have joined us in the data monitoring across news weeks, which took place, I think it was end of January, beginning of February. So the way we would do it is in pairs. Every evening we would look at the content produced for CBJ Target, which is the website we use to showcase everything that we worked on across those 2 weeks. And we will analyze the number of female contributors that we found across each type of content and each story that was written. When analyzing contributors, you would usually look at interviewees, whether they've been or where they've been featured, in an image or in a video. But we also look at who has produced that respective type of content. So we're looking at the reporters that have written it as well. At the beginning, I think the first day we've done the news weeks, we had only, was it 29% women contributors, which was a very low number. And I personally was a bit shocked by that. But thankfully, by the end of the 2 weeks on last week, we managed to get 47% female contributors across our whole content, which was amazing to achieve.
And just to expand on that, I mean, in terms of sort of, the importance of this project, and I don't know if I can speak for Amelia on the same thing, but I mean, the topic of representation is, of course, massively important. And I think as a male, I think for the majority, I think representation is something that can easily be taken for granted because, we're so used to just seeing our relatable faces on TV or in, online news. So the actual issue of representation, I don't think a lot of people give as much value as they should do. And, just to be involved in this and to move forward with the mindset of, including, as much diversity as we can, I think it's fantastic, and really it's massively important for improving the future of journalism. Sorry, that was my unofficial passing back to you, Margaret. Sorry.
Thank you, Alex. And Amelia. Now we're going to speak to Olivia from Westminster University, and she's going to tell us about her project.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm in my second year on the Film BA course at the University of Westminster in London. So I got involved with 50/50 when my team and I won a pitching process to create video content, about 3 episodes that would tell the story of 50/50 so far and where it's going to be taken next. So the videos that we created this past September were about sort of how 50/50 came to be, and then a lot of the main aims going forward for considering diversity in other areas. So I'd say a really interesting part of that experience was being invited to present a paper in a virtual pitch for 50/50, because I feel like in that situation, we learned a lot more about representation and diversity, because going into it, I think everyone on a media course really understands that there's a representation problem and that there's a problem of unequal voices. But I think until you really get to a situation where you're looking at the statistics and you're creating a piece to discuss the issue is when it becomes more apparent. So we worked with journalists Bryony Hopkins and Amir Ahmed, who fronted the films, and alongside some other BBC journalists and people in Australia as well in the ABC newsroom, we combined Zoom interviews and in-person video content to create these promotional videos. So yeah, we discussed with interviewees, stakeholders, and partners who appeared in the content, and as well people who are active in industries where certain groups are more underrepresented, for example, construction. And it was just really interesting, I think, when we were actually interviewing and when the director was interviewing different people to kind of hear the story of how they came to be successful in their careers, because I think as students starting out, having those role models is really important for us, because if you don't see it, you don't know that you can be it. So as we did shoot during COVID times, there were a lot of barriers to get through to sort of make the project possible. But I found that when doing that and when creating the content for 50/50 itself, we learned a lot about sort of adaptation on set. And then I think, so another thing that I found really, really interesting about the project was that it's not just an experience about managing teams and logistics as a producer, but it's also an input into the social process that's propelling the media industry into the future. So I think it's a concrete representation in a sense of what's possible for the upcoming careers of the whole team. And I'm really proud of my whole crew who worked really well to pull the videos together, because I think just being able to have the opportunities to bring other people on board to a project, especially during a time when not many people have work experience, and getting to learn additionally about representation in the industry is something that I think is just really important in these times. And I think as well, we have a clip of the video that we created.
The BBC's 50/50 Equality Project started in 2017 and is now the biggest collective action to increase women's representation in its content. But how did it start and how does it work?
I talked to my team who make outside source, and they were fortunately excited about what I was suggesting, and we agreed to trial this very simple system of measurement where we measure every day, we share the data every day. We started at below 40% women in January 2017, and by April we'd gone past 50%, and in May we did it again. We started to talk to other editors who were also interested in taking on this issue, and that's when it really went through the roof, and we went through from 60 to 70 teams to 400 or 500 teams in a matter of 18 months.
And 50/50 is now expanding. What are your sort of thoughts and feelings about the future of 50/50?
Something that I didn't really imagine would ever get this big has been expanded not by anything I've done, but by the enthusiasm of all these hundreds of other people. The more diverse your range of stories and diverse your range of sources, the more likely you are to report accurately on the world.
Fantastic. So thank you so much to the students for sharing their work there, and three very kind of different ways that students at partner institutions have been involved in 50/50. So what we're going to do now is just run through a few questions we've got for the students, just to pull out some of the things that we think it would be good to hear from them on. Just a reminder to everyone attending that obviously there'll be a wider general Q&A at the end of the session, so do feel free to put your questions in the chat or have them stored up and ready to go. I'll come to Alex and Amelia first, if I may take home team privileges. And just to flesh out a bit more of the detail, because I know, I don't know, I assume, I'm guessing, many of the fellow tutors from other universities that have not done something like this yet are here to sort of really hear about the nitty-gritty of how it was done and how we embedded it into those newsweeks, as you two so eloquently explained during your section. But I wonder if you could just sort of tell us a bit more about the data monitoring project. And I suppose I'm interested in what you thought before we started it, really. What did you think the outcomes might be? And I'll come to you first, Amelia, on that, and then you, Alex, after, if that's okay.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, when we started to first monitor everything, the first day when we did it, we got only 29% female contributors across all the content we've produced, which to me came as a shock. I didn't really expect that. I thought we were pretty good at equal representation because we've been told this on and on at NTU. And I think seeing that has kind of prompted everyone to just do their best and try to change that. I think a lot of people were surprised also when, after counting the number of female contributors in evenings, we would present everything the next day, and we got the same reaction. A lot of people were shocked by it, and just everyone came in as a team and tried to do their best to change that. So that was really, really good to see. So if in the first week we had, ranging from 29% to about 33% female contributors in the first week. In the second week, we even had 55%, 56% on on Tuesday and Wednesdays. That's when we had them. So you can see that it changed completely after we started monitoring it and presenting it to the rest of the team during our news conferences at the beginning of the day.
Thank you very much, Amelia. And yeah, I think that's a really good illustration of what the kind of project is about, really. Everyone thinks they're doing the best they can, but actually, maybe if you look at it, you're not. But also, I think an illustration of how kind of wonderfully effective it is just to count up the difference and then go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe something's not going right here. Alex, just come to you then. What did you think the outcome might be when we first started the project? How did you feel before going into it?
Well, if we're completely honest, I was sort of expecting the results that we had on the first day. I was definitely disappointed by the results, don't get me wrong, but I think considering we weren't making that sort of like conscious effort to let everyone know to sort of, really, get into that mindset, I did think, yeah, there will probably, it will be representative of, the reality of why this initiative exists in the first place. But as Amelia quite rightly said, as soon as we started, really, driving the message home, especially in the daily briefings, and the numbers started going up, it was fantastic, and it just, well, it's just a lot more uplifting considering the data from last week.
Yeah,
the first week, yeah.
Thanks, Alex. I agree. And just come back to you again, Alex. You and you, obviously, Amelia and the 6 others involved were the kind of champions for this. But how did you feel the rest of the cohort engaged with it when you asked them to look at these things that they were doing?
I think, as I said, when we started driving home the message, especially as I was taking part in some of the sort of editorial meetings and speaking to other writers, there was definitely more of a conscious effort for people to think about their sources, which was it was uplifting because it's the sort of start of ingraining that sort of mindset into the reporters of the future. So yeah, mostly positive, essentially.
Good,
Yeah.
I think so. I think it was. And it was really great how you all kind of pushed it along. And
yeah,
Amelia, just to come to you, just thinking about the data monitoring, the actual doing it, which for attendees involves a couple of students sitting down with a shared Google Doc and literally content by content going through, and we thought 2 people per evening doing that, Amelia, was about right. And we're doing 4 days in the working week, so we had 8 students, so it's kind of like 2 per night, worked out quite nice. How did you find that data monitoring process, Amelia? On a grade of 0 being not tedious and 10 being, oh my God, Johnny, that was a very tedious task you gave us. Where would you put it, and what would you suggest, to others potentially doing it in the future?
Well, I think I'm very thankful about the fact that I had to do it only for 2 days, because everyone did it. Everyone that participated did it on a different day. It just so happened that in some of the days that I had to do the counting, I was also an editor myself in those days, which didn't help massively. But at the same time, it kind of gave me an extra chance to look again at the content and view it from a different perspective, because I think with 50/50, every little report that you write, even those quick news stories that you write and you get up as soon as possible, they have a sort of like new ethical dimension altogether, and that was really interesting to see. And also I was surprised that after we shared our findings, a lot of people so we had sort of 3 sections: the news section, the lifestyle section, and sports section. And to be honest, whenever I reached the sports section, I would dread it, because I know it was very hard for them to just up that female contributors percentage. So that was a bit tedious, I would say, because I would, try to look at a photograph and think that, oh my God, I hope in the forefront there is, a female image, please, so I can add it there and just number a bit. Yeah, it was all right altogether. It wasn't too bad. The data set wasn't hard to work with. I only had to literally count, put in the numbers, and the Excel sheet would do the rest of the work for me, which would be the percentage. Maybe referencing was a bit tough, I would say, because we'd have to copy and paste literally every link. But altogether, it wasn't that hard to keep a track of, and I think any student would have been very good at doing it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, that's really useful for fellow colleagues in universities to hear that from you, because they're going to be hopefully, suggesting this to their students. So we'll come to Star next in a moment. But just last question, Alex. Look, sorry, Star, I gave you a false cue there, didn't I? Absolute curveball for you. Alex, obviously you were the only male student out of the team and only person that volunteered. So just very briefly, as we wrap up this bit, how did you find being a male student working on a gender project?
I mean, I think the thing that I took home the most was the fact, as you quite rightly said, I was the only male student on it, and it was a little disheartening, because I mean, I understand that there perhaps might be a little apprehension to not speak over women and non-binary voices. I completely understand that, but I think considering how this is out and out a collaborative effort, this initiative, it's more important than ever that us as men, the ones that find themselves getting represented more than any other group, should do their best to adapt to this mindset that everyone should have. So that was my main takeaway, really.
Great. Well, that's great to hear, Alex, and absolutely commend you for taking part and leading it as you all did, and I mean, I did it in the Newsweek. So, thank you very much, Star. I promise this time I won't say your name and then not actually come to you. So, apologies for that absolute false start there. But Star, you're doing university in Falmouth, which is a lovely part of the world. I know it a little bit, so well done you for a fine choice there. How do you think representation is working in those kind of more rural communities, which you're kind of experienced and based in down there?
Yeah, so I think it is important to note that, you know, Cornwall as a county is very rural, and naturally that does mean that as far as representation goes, you know, in terms of ethnic minority, it's very white in terms of the main industries that we have down here, farming and fishing and kind of industries like that. It is very male dominated, but that isn't to say, I think, that those voices that are upping representation and are upping diversity don't exist. And I think I hope that our series kind of proves that a little bit. So yeah, I think that's kind of the first thing to note is part of the challenge is definitely finding those voices to spotlight and finding those people who are kind of actively working to change kind of diversity and representation in rural communities. But I think, you know, especially over the past year, Cornwall as well, because of the pandemic and, you know, the announcement of G7, definitely the eyes of the world have definitely turned onto Cornwall a bit more, and kind of there's more of analysis of Cornwall as a county outside of it being kind of this picture perfect postcard holiday type county. So I think bringing 50-50 and the work of 50-50 to rural communities like Cornwall is so important, because things are changing. And I think especially being positioned in Falmouth as well, by nature of it being an arts university, of it being really creative, that does naturally draw in a kind of more vibrant and diverse community to where we're situated and our team. So I think we were really in a good place to kind of, in terms of working on our series, we were really in a good position to kind of notice that change, but also help affect it, because we're in such a creative environment. So yeah, I would say that diversity is there in you know, kind of in rural communities, and we found that as well with when we were working with BBC Radio Devon as well. It's not just Cornwall, it's, you know, Devon as well, which is also another rural community, and when they've been rolling out kind of monitoring in every area, you know, that diversity is there, and the 50-50 work and ethos has kind of proved that. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's really interesting to think about Cornwall in that way, and think about the different challenges of that kind of demographic down there, and that just county as a whole and how it's laid out. And I think I probably know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. You know, well, I'll ask it as an open question. To what extent did you feel empowered by working on this project? And you know, was there anything that surprised you while working on it?
Yeah, I think in both ways, I was kind of surprised. I think in the instance, just using the example of the people who we chose to profile, every person had kind of very significant stories of struggle within their industry, within their area of representation and diversity, but also every person had a lot of stories of success and how they are making those changes and how change is slowly coming about. So I'd say those are the kind of two things which stood out to me the most, is this kind of tension between really recognizing how much that change is still needed, but also how that change is kind of coming about. Sorry, someone's just walked into the room I'm in there, in case you can hear it.
Not to worry, don't worry, absolutely fine, yeah.
But in terms of it being empowering, yes, I think it was a really empowering project to work on for that reason, because it was amazing to be able to spotlight voices that are doing amazing things, you know, like Amy, just kind of going out there in a really male-dominated industry, and promoting what she's doing, and it's the same for everyone else we interviewed. So I think it was really empowering to kind of see like, it's not in vain, basically. So yeah, it was a really great experience.
Fantastic, and Amy's is a great story, as are the other ones that we've not seen the videos of. But I really enjoy watching Amy's story, and well done. It's a great one to spotlight. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Star. So last little bit of this section before we move on to move back to Margaret and a quick clip, and then we'll open it up for questions from the floor, or the virtual floor, as it were. Olivia, I promise I've said your name, and I do indeed want you to go onto camera. I'm not going to then throw back to the previous students. Obviously, you really looked at kind of like the reasons why the project got started, and as we've already spoke about, it's useful for people attending to understand where it's come from. But were you surprised by any of the things that you learned during that process?
I'd say definitely. I think at a certain point, entering into a film course or into a journalism course, it becomes apparent sort of the gender balance that's already going to be there. And I think that that's something to consider, is like funneling into the actual industry itself. What people learn in these courses, on these programs, I think shapes the future of the industry. So we, I think as a cohort, were surprised in the sense that the issue hadn't improved as rapidly as expected, but definitely weren't surprised that it was there in the first place.
Okay, thank you very much. And you said you're on set at the moment, is that right? You're working, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So as a result of this, are you more conscious of representation in different work environments in where you are now? Is it something that, as being part of this, you're now looking through the world through slightly new eyes?
Definitely. I'd say as a producer, my current short film project went through a pitching process to choose crew members for my student body. And I think while doing that, just a few months after wrapping up on the 50-50 project, keeping in mind the methodology we found really important when considering who contributes to the story, what voices are heard on set. And so for the current project, we did achieve an equal gender split. And this wasn't just done to check off a box, and it's not done to complete a quota. It's to offer the opportunity for fair representation to anyone coming onto the project with us. So I think we also need to consider how different voices are portrayed and heard in our script itself, on the screen, and behind the camera.
Excellent. Well, that's a really useful and insightful example of one of the impacts that being, involved in 50-50 has had for you. So thank you very much, Olivia. I'm going to bring all the students back together now just to ask you all same sort of question. I suppose it's probably been covered to an extent, but it'd be useful just to hear from Olivia, Alex, Star, and Amelia one last time. And I'll come to you first, Alex, if I may. And it's just, how important is it to you to see sort of diverse people on the content, on the media, on the things that you consume?
Well, obviously, from a very personal side, it's the industry that I want to be in. So, of course, I want that industry to be as sort of, as forward-thinking and as, diverse as it can be. But on obviously the wider perspective, it betters the entire community that it's representing. A community can't thrive as it should do if the voices of the marginalized groups are not being represented as they should be. So to have this sort of thing, leading the way, and not just on an international level, is massively important, and it's a privilege to be a part of it.
Thank you very much, Alex. And Star, I'll come to you next. Then Amelia, then Olivia, to give you a bit of fair warning about what order you're going in to get your thoughts in order. But yeah, Star, how important is it for you to see a diversity in the content you consume?
Yeah, well, I think just on a personal level, being a mixed race female, there definitely isn't enough representation as far as both women and ethnic minority contributors to content that mainstream media put out. So I think, yeah, on that level, I think on a personal level, it's means a lot, and I think it's definitely improved a lot to when I was growing up. I'm originally from Brighton, and even though that's quite a kind of big cosmopolitan city, it's also my parents had to work really hard to kind of make sure that I had kind of diverse influences. So I think it's definitely improved since then, but not just on a personal level. I think it's important because it normalizes diversity, which I think is an essential part of not just I think it was Olivia who said earlier, you know, it's not about just checking a box. It's about a deeper kind of societal shift, I think, and a different way of thinking and existing. So I think, yeah, that's a big reason why it's important, is just to normalise that this is, yeah, what the UK looks like and around the world. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Star. So thank you very much. And Amelia, coming to you next for the same question.
So as a trainee journalist who's just about to enter the industry, I think it makes a change in a way that the whole industry just seems more welcoming. The more we see female contributors appear in stories and writing these stories, the more welcomed everyone is going to feel at going into that industry, I believe. And it's also, I've also noticed, like in a lot of articles, for example, when you approach specialists, there's usually a male figure speaking. And it's really, I think for me, it's really important to see a woman speaking in some situations, because then I think that, oh, if I ever wanted to, I don't know, make a career change, I could go do anything I would want to do. So I think that is very, very important. That teaches girls in general, they can do whatever they set on doing.
Fantastic. And Olivia, again, last but absolutely not least, of course, same question to you.
I think seeing diverse people represented isn't just, I think, just about, again, checking off the box. It's considering the future of the industry. So as people who are about to enter into journalism, as people who are about to enter into documentary, I think people have an obligation as content creators to consider the impact of what they're saying, not just in the sense of the quality of the piece itself, which should obviously come very high up on the list, but also I think how what they create as emerging people in the industry would say to anyone even below us who's looking up, you know, like considering studying a course, for example, in journalism or on film. I think just each generation has a need, I think, to consider what is missing and to consider what I think pathways can be opened to both future journalists and people already in the industry.
Thank you very much, Olivia, and thank you very much to the students. I mean, it's not been the greatest of years, has it, in many ways, and there are lots of swirling dark forces out there, but I'd like to just say you've all absolutely made me thrilled to be alive again, and I feel like the industry is in very, very safe hands with you guys going into it. So with that, I'll thank you myself and hand back to Margaret.
Thank you, Joni. I would absolutely echo what you've just said. Can I firstly thank the students who've contributed this afternoon, Olivia, Emilia, Star and Alex. When we first started this project, as Nina said earlier, you know, it really started with Nina and I having a conversation. So the fact that, you know, a couple of years on, what we're hearing is that the students have had such positive experiences, and I would completely agree with Joni that it gives me real hope for the future, that we will see the change that we do need to see. So thank you so much to everyone for the really hard work that they've put in. What we're going to do now is have a look at a video that was produced by some of the students at my own university, the University of the West of Scotland, who really embraced the opportunity to share what their perspectives were in terms of ensuring that diversity and issues of diversity are addressed by the media. So they're not with us today, but very well done to Keir Jarvie, Lisa Kleins, Jamie Leckie and Rachel Watson for what I think is a really good piece of work, which I think we're going to have a look at now.
When people see themselves and they feel represented, they engage.
Have some forward movement and challenge and hopefully actually break these old barriers.
If there is one thing which I want you to get from this speech, it is that everything is possible despite having a disability. I love my disability because it is my motivation, not a negative baggage.
The 50/50 Project is the biggest collective action on increasing diversity in the BBC.
My name's Jill Barclay.
I'm Paul Carter.
My name's Michael McEwen.
Hi, my name's Jessica.
My name is Lewis Vaughan-Jones.
I think the BBC are probably at the forefront when it comes to any kind of diversity.
The open conversations that people have in all areas, in meetings, in editorial decisions, in chats around the water cooler, discussion, openness, confronting previous problems. It's all so much more transparent and out in the open now.
The social is going about diversity in the correct way, I think. They have so many people who are autistic, so many people that are disabled.
Having said all that, there is still a long way to go.
People want and need to see people like them.
Representation matters because when you grow up not seeing any of that, it's very easy to think that you're not normal, that there's something wrong with you, that you don't matter.
When they see me pop up on the news channel and they see my hearing aid on the band, and I get, especially parents and things getting in touch with me saying it's wonderful to see that on screen.
I just can't think of many programs anywhere unless they are focused on disabled people's issues that have mainstream disabled presenters.
I'm also happy to speak about football, music and kind of like mainstream stuff as well. I'm not just like a one-click pony, basically.
I just kind of want to show the world that neurodiverse viewpoints are important, and that we come at the world from a really interesting way and we have important contributions to make to the world.
I can look at a story about disability or that involves disabled people and I can tell whether there have been any disabled people involved. It brings you authenticity and you can't buy that.
This is people, this is humanity, this is what we're here to make programming about.
We're here and we're worth listening to.
Thank you to the students of the University of West of Scotland for quite a powerful piece of film to end our student contributions today. What I would quite like to do now is open the floor up to questions from anybody here, or indeed if anyone maybe has any questions for our students. We have some questions in the chat, so I'm going to have a look at them. To the students who made the videos, what was the experience like of producing content like this for real world broadcast? And was the process different to what you expected it would be? So to Amelia, Olivia, Alex or Star, I don't know which one of you would like to take that. Perhaps Star, we looked at your video earlier. What did it feel like doing that for the BBC 50/50 project, and to know that it was going to be seen by a big audience?
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing opportunity, and it was an amazing process. Again, as I emphasised earlier, it was definitely a team effort. I think the part that was most notable for me about the process was just the opportunity to have that constant flow and that back and forth of kind of feedback from Nina and Lara at different points, and it was really interesting to kind of get a real insight of how you take kind of a big vision of what you want something to be, and and kind of really hone in and refine those creative ideas. And I think because we are from an arts uni, we can get a bit out there and want to include a lot of different things, but I think actually it was so helpful to really have the experience of saying, of bringing together, okay, this is your, you know, we're going to use some of your creativity, but this is how we can actually put it into action and put it into a piece that really works for for 50/50 and the message that they're bringing, and also for really doing the best possible job at showcasing those new voices. So yeah, I think just that kind of process throughout the whole thing was such an amazing insight, and yeah, it was a really amazing experience. So
fantastic.
I hope that answers it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic answer. Thank you so much, Star. We have another question, and it's from Fiona Mackay at Robert Gordon University, complete opposite end of the country from Star in Falmouth. And Fiona, as well as thanking all of the speakers, the students mostly, has got a question specifically for the Nottingham Trent University contingent today, which is, did you do any follow-up sessions with the cohort to get feedback and discussion and to go over the whole exercise? If so, how did it go and how did they respond?
Well, that would have been a fantastic idea, Fiona, and I wish we had. We had a debrief session on the final day of the 2 news weeks. We covered a lot of different areas, and as part of that, there was a conversation. The way it falls in the year, there's kind of quite a hard stop on that Friday afternoon, and then we all vanish for like a week or two, and we're all exhausted. So no, we didn't. And I'm not sure if Alex and Amelia can really necessarily add that much. It's not really their ball to drop on that one. It was mine as a tutor leading it. But I suppose Alex or Amelia, were there any follow-up conversations amongst your cohort? Has it had any lasting resonance with any of yourself or your student colleagues?
I mean, do you want to?
Yeah, go, I don't mind
yes,
who.
if that's okay. So when I was working as a print editor in a couple of the days, I remember I was having these conversations quite frequently with the sports editors. I was trying to always remind them, oh, can we please include more female contributors if possible, more female interviewees, maybe some stories that speak about, you know, women's sports. So that's the sort of conversations I've had. But apart from that, we didn't really take it to a step further. But they existed somewhat in some way, but we didn't expand on it probably as much as we should have.
I agree, Amelia, but you're not on the hook for that. Alex, do you want to come in?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think actually, what I guess to take from that is that, as Amelia said, the conversation did happen, but it was quite natural. It did happen like across the 2 weeks when we were having our editorial discussions. So I guess, yeah, having a proper talk about it at the end would have been good, but it's encouraging to know that we were sort of doing it regardless. And I know that when me and my partner Emma were doing the sheet for the day, we were just talking about just how so easy it would be to pretty much like apply this to any sort of like similar newsroom scenario where it isn't already in place, because you know what we were doing was, you know, on the face of it very simple but incredibly important. So yeah, that was our main takeaway anyway.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, we did, Fiona, obviously do a breakdown of the figures at the end, and we were able to share the impact of, look, we monitored this, as the guys have already said, it was in the high 20s, early 30s in the first week, and within 4 or 5 days of working on it, we'd managed to get it past 50% on 2 or 3 days. And there's a really interesting example that I wanted to share with everyone, was that a student did a story about varsity, you know, being cancelled between University of Nottingham and Trent again, and it illustrated it with a picture of the male rugby team, which is 15 men, and the coach was also a man. So that kind of like, without thinking about this, created, you know, 16 men in that column, in that tally. And I just said to the student, well, it is a very gender equal event because they're a male and female. So why have you not put? All right, yeah, I'll put a female. And suddenly that piece went from being, you know, not representative at all and skewing our figures hugely in a bad way to being different. So a bit off topic, but I really wanted to share what a simple kind of effective way it was of changing our figures.
Fantastic. I would completely agree with that point, Johnny. I know certainly when I ran the project with my students last year, we had a similar issue where it was a sports story and the photograph was all men. And when I pointed it out to them, they just hadn't thought about it. And so it did change the perspective of the story as well when they thought about a more balanced photograph. I think, as with lots of things, it's the 100 small things that we change sometimes that make the big difference rather than the one big thing. And I think, if anything, I think with my own students doing the 50-50, that is something that they have thought about too. We've got another question, and this is aimed at the students, which is, what would be the most important advice you would give to other students who are addressing the initial pitch, and how to successfully manage the process as it continues through? So I don't know who would like to answer that. Maybe Amelia. That might be a question that you could answer, seeing as you were involved in putting together what was clearly a successful pitch, or and indeed anybody who wants to pick that question up. And that's from Jackie Shaw. Amelia, do you feel that's one that you could answer, or do you want me to pitch it out to someone else?
You could pitch to someone else if you wanted to. I don't think Olivia has got a chance of answering yet.
Yeah, Olivia, do you perhaps maybe want to take that question?
Sure, sorry, I think my audio's...
Okay, so what advice...
Sorry, I think my audio's just cut out for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, sorry.
Okay. What advice would you give to other students in addressing the initial pitch for the 50-50?
That's a good question. So I think a successful pitch is detailed where it matters. So considering that ours was produced back in September, a lot of consideration had to be put into safety and practicalities, which isn't the most exciting thing to hear. But I think when pitching for a project, of course, the idea needs to be solid, and the crew who's been working together need to have a good working relationship. But considering feasibilities, practicalities, who exactly you may be able to reach out to for content, who you have access to, what locations might be feasible for you to use. So I think the idea, of course, comes first above all. If you don't have a solid idea, then I don't think the project can be successful. But building off of that, having the detail that you need to prove that you're capable of making it possible, I think is the most important thing to have.
Fantastic, thank you, thank you. We have one other question, which is from a colleague who's asking about us involving colleges in the 50-50 project. We did initially work with universities because Association for Journalism Education, our membership is universities, it's not further education colleges, at least not at the moment. But I know that, and this may be something that Nina can pitch in on, I know that last year, actually just before lockdown, there was a really successful project held at City of Glasgow College. So I think, yes, I'll hand over to Nina, but I'm sure the answer is yes, 50-50 would welcome college.
Absolutely. Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Of course, we're absolutely happy to have colleges on board. And as you mentioned, I think Jackie's in the audience, we organised our first Women Expert Day, which was outside of the BBC, and we held it at City of Glasgow College. It was absolutely fantastic. It was literally about 2 weeks, I think, before lockdown. So it was the last time I was allowed out. And it was I think it was a really good experience, because what we did is that we used the facilities to train up the particular women experts, but also the students were the ones who were crewing, who were doing the radio, they were reporting on the particular day as well. And we gave them a deadline of 5 o'clock to put a film together. So they were all experiencing what it would be like to do that Newsday scenario around that particular event. And so that was quite an ambitious task for us to do. We had networking at the end, didn't we, Margaret, which you came along to? And that was absolutely, it was really ambitious. It was fantastic. And I would love to see that happening again as we move forward. But I think the more of us who are taking part in 50-50, and as you say, doing 100 small little things to make the change, the more likely we are to create that change in the long term. So yeah, colleges, schools, whoever wants to sign up, I'm for it.
Fantastic, thank you, Nina. Can I just now draw things to a close, because we are very conscious of the time, and it is very much an association for journalism education tradition that we run over. So I hope the BBC 50/50 team are okay with us actually holding true to that tradition this afternoon. Can I firstly and most importantly thank our students who have taken part this afternoon, Emilia, Star, Alex and Olivia. We have been inspired by you, I think it would be quite safe to say, but also thanks to all of the students that have taken part at all of the universities that have been involved, because I think certainly, you know, as Johnny has said, I think, you know, as the others in the BBC 50/50 would agree, I think it gives us real hope for the future that there is going to be change in the industry, and I think we would all agree that that's very much what we need. So thank you. Thank you to the BBC 50/50 team for enabling the AGE to be involved in what is a fantastic initiative. If any AGE members want to get involved, please get in touch with myself, get in touch with Johnny, and we can put you directly in touch with Nina and the rest of the team at BBC 50/50. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I'm going to hand it back to Nina, who is going to just close proceedings. And all I would say is look forward to welcoming more members on board with 50/50 and to future AGE events. So thank you so much, Nina.
Oh, wonderful. Margaret, Johnny, thank you so much for hosting this and for the AJE for hosting this particular event. I've just seen that Barbara and Manuel, thank you very much for being interested for your students in Brazil to get involved. That would be absolutely brilliant. And if people want to get directly in touch with the 50/50 project, you can. It's 5050project@bbc.co.uk. I also would like to just direct you to our website as well, which is bbc.com/5050. There is a specific section for universities. So if you add / the pitch, you'll see all the great work that the students have been doing across the last year or so for 50/50 and that data monitoring work as well. There has been so much great content in what we've seen today, but I wanted to end actually on one more project. And this one is from Alex, who did a photo series on new voices for us. And she's from the University of Westminster. So just to play us out for the last 30 seconds or so, here's Alex's work to showcase new voices. And it's something that's going to help us, all of us, 100 small things, make sure that together we can make sure that we're making a world that better reflects our world.
Thank you.